Hello, my name is Mrs. Rhein, and it's my understanding that you had a few questions about curriculum-based measurement and CBMs and how we use those within the classroom. And that is a great question. So, curriculum-based measurement, or more commonly as teachers, we call them CBMs for short. They are an assessment with the standard procedures that allow me as a teacher to directly measure how your student is comprehending a skill over a period of time. So it allows me to efficiently and effectively take a step back and get a scope of my entire classroom, who's meeting the objective, are they meeting the objective? Do students need extra support? It pretty much just gives me a general overview of checking in with my students. How are they doing? How can I better support them so that they're successful and continue to learn within my classroom? And so, as I mentioned, CBMs monitor student progress toward a goal. So you can see different types of CBMs that maybe we talk about at conferences, or maybe your student comes home and says they had fluency CBM that day. So there's different types. So the fluency type of CBM, or maybe how many words your student read per minute, that is a general outcome measure. So what we talk about that is working on a very long-term goal. So maybe our goal for the fifth grade team, looking at the spring semester, the student's goal is 162 words per minute. And so we continue to work on student fluency throughout the year to reach that goal and to continue increasing in that goal so that your student continues to make growth and continues to learn. However, sometimes if maybe we're working on fractions in math and we were learning a new skill with fractions, we'll use something like a mastery measure, which basically identifies a short-term goal on something that was recently taught. So if I teach fractions and all 25 students in my classroom fail, that gives me as a teacher a great understanding of, okay, I need to step back and I need to reteach. That gives me a good understanding that my students were not able to meet the objective, and it gives me a quick view into how my students are doing. Were they successful? No. Okay, they all weren't successful. I need to reteach something. I did something wrong. Or, okay, maybe 20% of the students in my class weren't meeting the objective. Well, I anticipated 80% of the students in my class to meet the objective, and 20% of them didn't meet it. Okay, that gives me a good insight that 20% of those students need support based on my results. However, if 30% of the students did not meet the goal, that gives me a good insight of, okay, I need to pour into this skill a little bit more. Maybe I need to pull out a couple small groups of all of these students who did not meet the objective. How can I support the students that meet the objective? Maybe we can work on hands-on activities working with fractions. Maybe we can continue to work on facts or working in small groups, students working with one another, just really getting more in depth on how I can better support students using that quick measurement of the CBM. One thing I do want to assure you is that your students' results on their CBM is completely confidential. You can think of it like the doctor's office. When you go in and you share something with your doctor, you don't want anyone knowing except your doctor. Of course, someone that can support your doctor might know. For example, the nurse in the doctor's office checked you in and got maybe your vitals and helped you and said, "Oh, I noticed Mrs. Ryan's blood pressure is high. My doctor is able to support me because of the information my nurse gave." Or maybe I know that I need to get medicine, so when the secretary checks me out, she knows what the doctor told me because she needs to call the pharmacy. Things like that. So when your student takes a CBM, I, of course, am the one who is looking at it, assessing first and foremost, how can I support your student so that they are making meaningful connections to what is happening in our classroom? But if it is something where I need to outreach support, maybe it's a reading support of something that I need a little extra assistance with, I can go to one of my fellow fifth grade teachers and say, hey, I noticed a student is struggling with this specific skill of inferencing. How can I better support this student? Or maybe my assistant principal is stepping in, or maybe a Title I teacher is stepping in, or an ELL instructor. We have a great team of support, but all of our teachers have the same goal as me to make sure that your student is being supported for ultimately their learning, their growth, and that they are meeting these curriculum objectives. So you might be wondering, okay, so you look at this information and then what does that tell you? What do you do with the information? So there's a bunch of different things I can do once looking at the CBMs. First, like I mentioned, that general idea of, okay, I looked at my whole class and 20% of my students didn't meet the objective. Let's pull back these 20 students. Let's continue after we do day 2 of large group. We're going over this skill again. Okay, let me pull this group back. Let's dive deeper into this skill. Let's make sure these students are making a meaningful connection to what's happening in our classroom. And then, second thing is just educational planning and monitoring. So, like I mentioned, that fluency test, if our reading goal for the spring is 162 and your student gets 170 in the fall, the winter, and the spring, that gives me a good insight that that student isn't growing. So I want to make sure, first and foremost, the benchmark is not the most important. What's important is that your student's growing and your student is learning in my classroom. And so CBMs, such as the fluency, give me a good idea to monitor student progress. And ultimately, for some students, it's a great opportunity to have data to support the need for an individualized educational plan, to be able to meet with special education providers or Title I providers or ELL. Ultimately, our goal is to support your students so that they're successful in my classroom, and CBMs give me a quick scope to efficiently monitor how students in my classroom are meeting the objective and how I, as a teacher, can better support them. Thank you so much. If you have any more questions, please let me know.